Okay, 10-second warning. Before we go to the autograph signing. Elegance, jetpacks and sharks. I'm afraid we're no sharks, so don't worry if you are scared of it. So welcome, Martine. She's grown conscious in a gypsy camp, kept her cool in the heat of Nassau, and faced prehistoric beasts, all while looking flawless with style and strength. Graham and Norman, no need much of an introduction to you two legends of cinematic sound. The work of these two has helped define the pulse-pounding, tension, explosive action, and unmistakable style of the James Bond universe and all the films. Chris Soundfall. Graham, 17 Bond films, I believe?
Yes, and I should just explain that as a permanent member of the Parliament Studio Sound Department, we were moved around quite a lot, especially the junior members, so I found myself having little bits to do with most of the James Bond films until I finally got into post-production, where I was effects mixer in the theatre from Live and Let Die onwards, I think, until I took over as the lead mixer on the first John Bennington.
And Norman, just short intro. Oscar-winning sound editor, as everybody's just heard, for Goldfinger. You helped define the sonic style of the films, from the roar of the Aston Martins to the chilling silence before the film strikes. So Martine, some of our creative writers. So Martine, first. I want to play this clip before I ask a question. So this is when you're first seen in Thunderballs.
Well, it's not what I call content. That's too simple. Wanstall!
Ahoy there! I want us to calm down. You wouldn't be going anywhere near Paul's house.
I wasn't, but I could.
Well, I have a very important appointment there, but I very much appreciate the lift.
Come aboard then.
You don't mind taking this boat, do you?
Not at all. Hurry up.
Okay, so this is the first time we see Martine as Paula in the film. Was there a scene cut? Because sometimes, mostly Bond girls have a dramatic introduction to Bond, yet here you are, seemingly already knowing him. Was there a scene film that you know of? Doing a kind of introduction?
That was it.
That was
definitely it, yeah. But it was interesting because immediately there was because I always look at Sean and Terence as my mischief buddies. And immediately had that kind of rapport with Sean, instantly. Well, I met him before, obviously, from Russia. But there was that and it shows up in the scene. So like, oh, for God's sake, get in the damn book, It's really...
Sure, okay. Right, next bit. You may remember this, you may not.
As a fellow secret agent, the Lincoln-born Martine Beswicke is a comparative unknown, as are all of the girls. They are selected to please both Bond and the audience.
Has anybody else actually seen it? No. So not on YouTube, so thankfully it's YouTube. So I believe you were asked to tan up
Oh yes.
for a couple of weeks.
Oh, my famous entry was, I had to go, this is really weird. Is it kind of something a little weird to you? Or is it just that?
Bit feedback.
To go out here. Actually, what happened was that because I'd been partying in London for so many years. I mean, I am an island girl, but I was grey. I was not even white, I was grey. And I was so thin, because I was dancing all night. I was thinking of dancing and having a great time, lots of fun. And so when I got there, I had to be called, excuse me, every day on a call sheet, and I would have to go out there and sun myself and eat. What a fabulous way to be living. So I did. I mean, what I would do is I would just get sort of like, I just dance around everyone, because I would be with Sean and whoever's working, and I would just I just kind of dance and I laugh, and so I could sit on Sean's lap and I had a cigarette and a and I was just kind of like wandering around, so I was just, sunning myself.
Great starts of the first 2 weeks of
And eating.
jobbing. Yeah. Okay, the next clip. Some of you may have seen this one before.
For their strenuous roles in Thunderball, Bond's playmates attend a training school in cinematic violence. They're taught armed and unarmed combat, scuba diving, and how to handle a variety of underwater equipment and exotic weapons. There's no room in his world for the fragile wallflower type.
It's utter rubbish.
I know. Well, this is it. The narrators was there saying undergoing training for cinematic violence.
Really, I mean, violence done to me. Wasn't there
Yeah,
anybody else?
exactly.
I mean, but it was fun doing it, but it was absolute rubbish. We did have to we did have to learn how to do the scuba stuff, and all of it, we did it. But it had nothing to do with what all of us were doing. I mean, it was just sort of like this, more publicity.
Sure. With the fact that you didn't do any kind of water scenes per se, were you glad to stay dry? Or would you have liked a little bit of...
No, I wasn't a great swimmer. I'm a Jamaican, but I mean, we're terrible swimmers. We don't, we'll get head above the water.
So this is probably part of what you were saying with the scubas there.
That always makes me laugh, because I'm standing there with all these guys with spears. I mean, am I going to survive them? Really? I know maybe a Bond girl, but that is ridiculous. But I always laugh at it. I have to say, the bikini that I'm popping out of was actually, Terence was there the day that we were fitting the bikini. And we were going through all the fabrics and the thing and how it was going to look. And he said, I like that fabric. He actually chose the fabric that I'm wearing. I am so sorry I didn't keep that, because I might have gotten quite a bit for it.
Just a couple of publicity photos with the For Your Eyes Only book. Is that yours, or was it just given to you just
exactly.
Just a little prop for this?
Yeah.
And the other ladies you worked with, the good camaraderie with these two?
Totally.
Yeah, amazing, yeah.
Lucian is still my dance
Sure.
assistant, so we see each other all the time. We love each other. In fact, I was just with a bunch of Bond girls. Well, there's like little chicks of Bond girls, and we were together on Wednesday night, and there were 7 of us.
Oh, this is London today.
London Cabaret Club. And we just love, I'm sorry that I don't have one today. I miss my sisters, I love my sisters. And we have, I know it sounds ridiculous, but there is a bond between us. There really is. And because what we've experienced, us girls have experienced, is really unique. No matter how small the part or how big the part or whatever, there's no other actress who has experienced this whole kind of filmmaking. It's incredible. It's incredible, and it's interesting to see it continue. I mean, I'm always amazed that here I am again. I mean, 60 years later and many years later, who I am. And how old I am. And how old I am. It is quite amazing. It is quite amazing. It's phenomenal. I don't know the franchise. I mean, there are so many other franchises. Who and Star Wars, many. But I think this one is top of the line.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah,
It's
right.
absolutely incredible for all. I mean, I can hardly wait to see who's going to be the Bond.
Of course, everyone.
Now, of course, I have my favorite. I know you will have yours. Mine is Henry Cavill.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
I'm just moving to the photo on the right here, just to give people an idea who's. Obviously, Sean and Chen, that's Joan Davis, continuity script. Right.
Oh, this one is Hannah.
Oh, so it's one.
No. She was Corda. She was part of the Corda family. I mean, Haig, Michael Corda, and all those people. No, she was great. And you see what I'm doing. I mean, I'm having my own, I'm entertaining myself, even though they're not even looking at me. You know? He's ignoring me as I'm dancing.
And finally, looking back on this film, do you think kind of luxury and escapism, that's part of the Bond magic for audiences too, from what they see here? Luxury and fine dining. I believe actually your dressing room was on a yacht. Is that not?
Oh, no, that was my boyfriend.
Oh.
That yacht you see in the background, called the Black Pearl, he was my boyfriend. And he was actually wonderful. His name, I can't remember his full name, but his name, we called him Buzzard. And oh my God, the yacht is so beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And as you see, it's in the background of the thing. It is, I think it has to do with just the fantasy and luxury, you know, and us girls.
Of course.
And of course, Bond, sorry.
And still 60 years later celebrating the film. Still 60 years later celebrating as well. Could you imagine that?
It is incredible. I mean, I look at my other girlfriends, my Bond girls, and I go, can you believe this? Can you? And we always are absolutely amazed every time we meet. And it continues,
True.
you know, until we're too old, until we're on war.
And the trouble with the Bonds is that people are always reproducing the fact that it's 50th anniversary, 60th anniversary, and I always say, I don't
Okay, thank you very much, Martine.
Yeah, you're right.
Thank you, everybody. There we go. Right, on to Norman and Graham. Several scenes here. I'm wondering if you could be able to describe, maybe if you remember, how each of the sounds were created. So this is when, I think it's Spectre number 9 gets electrocuted. So just watch the clip.
Oh, you gotta watch something.
Yeah.
Number 11.
Distribution of red China narcotics in the United States, $2,300,000. Collected by number 9 and myself.
2 million free. Our expectations were considerably higher. Number 11.
Competition from Latin America. Prices are down.
Did you actually do that to somebody?
Are you talking about the explosion, are you?
Yeah, the sort of sparky sound afterwards. It was kind of.
Yeah. The thing is, when you've got to create a sound effect, it's usually a combination, because sometimes you can just go into a recording theatre and you know exactly the gadgets and the props you need, and so you record them knowing that you could combine them to make the final item. But also we had sound effects libraries, where you could go to a library with a list of sounds, and they would play you everything they'd got in that type. And so that explosion there that would be, without doubt, would have been from the sound effects library. But then we could always add, if it wasn't quite right, if there was something missing from it, then we would record that and blend the two together. So it was a creative thing in many ways. The sound after that, I think, would have been, without doubt, a library sound. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not the sort of thing that we would have a prop that could have produced it.
Bit of dynamite in the backlot somewhere. Okay, this is the Vulcan bomber crashing into the sea. That's how the sound of the Vulcan bomber was made, crashing into the sea. Wild guess, anyone? Go on then, Norman.
Yeah, that was the sort of sound that you probably wouldn't be able to find in a sound effects library. You know, something landing in the water down around, and no one would have got round to have recorded it. But on all films, there are so many things that you have to record yourself. We have special theatres, recording theatres, and people, there were 2 or 3 people around that were called effects, footsteps and effects artists. And they were very, very bright in their own field. They had a feel for it. If they saw a sound, they would almost immediately know the prop that you would need to produce it. And if they were doing footsteps, they would be absolutely spot on. Everyone exactly right, with the right variation. And we were doing a session like you do on all films. And when we got to this, I said to the guy, I said, I don't think we've got any hope of contributing to this scene here. He said, He said, I need a pool of water, and I thought, well, you know, about that deep. But that was quite easy. We were able to have a blow-up pot with water in. He said, I want a hose now, I want a hose. So we gave him a hose, turned it on, and he held his hand at the front of it. And then at the right moment, he released it and worked the power of that water that had been sustained inside the tube into the water. And that was the result. I just couldn't believe it. I just could not believe it. I don't think I even added or subtracted anything from it. No, I don't think I did.
Almost perfect sound for it. Okay. All the building up there.
No, I like that sound. I'm glad I did it, actually.
Did you shoot a harpoon?
No, I think probably it was an arrow being shot, which would be in the library, and we would have enhanced it in some way. But the actual contact, we would have shot that ourselves, recorded that ourselves. We would have tried this, tried that. We always knew when we got it right. You know, you try various items, but it's the same when with so many unusual sounds, invariably they were made up by a lot of what we call ingredients. You would record things that you knew would contribute towards it, and then you'd have the fun of going in there in the mixing theatre with the mixing guy, and you would make various blends, and you always knew when you got the right blend. You always knew. That's the one, we got it, we made it, yeah. It was very satisfying.
Fantastic. Right, so we've got next. With the parachuting balls. You was mentioning earlier about...
No CGI, I'm
Yeah, exactly. The book, there was a guy who just set aside to create bubble sounds, you mentioned?
Yeah, I think chances are that we could have recorded those quite easily, providing you had a microphone that could go near or under the water. Quite frankly, of all the 5 Bond films I worked on, this to me is the one area that I feel that we could have really discussed it to a greater length. I think there should be far more music, because to try and keep on with those areas where there were so many bubbles. I mean, I did have a colleague that his sole job was to just do the bubbles. But there were times when there were so many, where would you start? Where would you stop? I mean, it was just unbelievable, really. But the actual underwater sound, I tried various experiments when we were still just, the film was still being cut together. And I tried slowing various soundtracks up until I got one that I thought that's exactly right, that when you're underwater, that's the sound you would hear. And I've never forgotten the fact that we had a viewing of the film one day. It had been put together, but it wasn't fine cut. And John, the composer, he happened to be there, which is very, very rarely that a composer would be. I don't know why he came anyway, but anyway he did. And when it was over, he came over and he said, "Norman, I'm so pleased I came today, because now I know what you're doing, I know what I would do, because I was going to put 6 trombones over there." And I thought, it's one of those hazards about making films. It was a great shame that because of the timing, everything's done to timing, and it was very difficult. You never had a chance when the composer knew where music was going to be, and that composer could go away and start coming up with ideas. But we never had a chance to sit together and say, well, look, I'm going to do this, you do that, okay, I'm going to do that. And that would have been so useful in all films, but what used to happen was, in so many scenes when it came up in the final mixing, because we'd been independent, the two didn't go together. And so often that one of them had to go, and usually it was the sound effects, because the music obviously is far more creative than the sound effects usually. And I thought throughout that whole episode, there were times when I thought, why couldn't it have been music? Yeah, but anyway, that's the best we could do.
And then I think finally, with this one there, the music cue building up to this sort of dramatic ending, and then it went silent and the blow goes up. How did you create the sound? Was that just another library clip?
What, the explosion?
Yeah.
Oh, almost certainly,
Yeah.
yes. But often the explosion wouldn't be necessarily quite as you wanted it. It went out to the right, went out to the left. And so that's when we would add ingredients, and so many sounds were created with mixing various ones together. Sometimes you got a sound that was exactly right, but in a thing like that, with all the explosions, there was always something about it that was missing, because that blew up and there was nothing on it, so you added it to it. It's ingredients is the word I should use.
And with Graham, with the work you did on the film, did you find any problems with anything that you came across?
Little to do with Thunderball. I said I was moved around in the sound department as a junior, and I do remember that I was in the transfer bed for Thunderball, which involved getting the quarter-inch tapes in and transferring the chosen takes onto 35mm magnetic sound from millimeters to edit up to the picture. But the reason I recall Thunderball is because from the Bahamas location, there were extremely long takes, which the camera can't be running all the way through. In fact, we'd start the printed tape, and it would run for what seemed like ages, and then the clapper would go, and then they'd play the scene, and then it would play on for hours afterwards. And that's the only reason I remember Thunderball. As I said, I was moved around a lot.
Sure. With moving from techniques in the 60s into the 70s and 80s, obviously everything changed quite a bit. Your first one was Live and Let Die?
As post-production, yeah. I moved into the post-production. Just go back, I mean, the transfer bay was pretty boring, and I much preferred to be out on the set, and going on location. But at about the 70s, the permanent crews for location at Pinewood had to be let go, and so my boss offered me a job in post-production as a sound effects mixer in one of the theatres, which, with no work outside and a young baby boy and a big fat mortgage, there was no time, no contest. So I went into the mixing theatre from then on as an effects mixer.
And with all the films you were involved with, did that allow you a bit more creative freedom from other films, or were you still kind of directed?
Well, no, we obviously had to give our interpretation of all the tracks that the sound editors provided for us. In most importantly for what the director wanted, and that obviously entailed the best for the story. So we would have quite a bit of influence in that, and we occasionally got the chance to try alternative stuff which maybe hadn't been thought of, a bit of experimentation. Sometimes that was adopted and sometimes it wasn't, so it was good. It was obviously very satisfying if it was adopted.
Sure. And was it quite difficult? I was speaking to Norman earlier and he was explaining that current modern films seem to drown out some of the soundtrack or the cues with the special effects. In your day, you kind of balanced it both very well.
Well,
in terms of that particular scene with the harpoon, you got the music building silence and then...
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the balance of music and sound effects is one of the hardest things for the re-recording mixer to achieve properly. It's obviously got a lot easier when we went into multi-track stereo. I mean, we played the GoldenEye clip this morning for John, but listening on 2 loudspeakers, it doesn't do doesn't really sound true for what we finished with the movie in a 5.1 big cinema, because we relied on sound effects mostly on the screen, and we could spread the music back to the surrounds and be closer to the audience and therefore more effective.
And looking back on the production of Thunderball, for all three of you who can answer this, were there any challenges or issues that came up that were difficult to resolve?
Oh, sorry.
Any of you can...
Which one are you talking to?
Any of you, can answer one. Yeah, any of you. Any sound issues that you came up? Was there a sound that was really difficult to find?
Well, no, I was talking to a gentleman with me just earlier. What was happening was the James Bond films were moving into what you might say futuristic type, little gadgets that no one had ever seen before. And the sound technology in the country was just beginning to leave a little bit behind. There were certain things like electronics which were being introduced into films, and in sound libraries there was always a shortage. You say, have you got a sound that would... No, sorry. But as it turned out, and I was very, very lucky in this respect, I heard that there was one company that had been set up called the BBC Radiophonic Workshop. And the reason they'd been set up was because films were beginning to be made to do with space. And they knew that they couldn't just have usual music over space scenes. And they were experimenting to try and come up with a type of music that would be appropriate. And they obviously had equipment or had experimented in an advanced way. And when it came to the laser beam in Goldfinger, somebody said to me, have you heard about it? I said, no, I haven't. I thought, well, that might be interesting. So I gave them a ring. The guy came out, saw the beam, and I said, I want the thinnest, steeliest sound you've ever heard. Oh, okay, he said. And he went away, and a week later, this track was sent to me, and it's exactly what I had in mind. And I suddenly realized that there was potential here. Here we had a company that were beginning to keep up with the type of sound that was being used a lot. And I don't know quite, you only lived twice when that rocket took off out of the dome and also came back down. That would have taken me weeks to create those sounds, adding bits. So I asked them if they could just give me one basic sound receding and one basic sound protruding so that I could then add to it. And when the tracks came back, the whole thing was complete. And the hours and hours that saved me was incredible. So I only mention it because the Bond films needed that type of company. It was getting quite difficult. Anything to do with electronics, you'd think, oh no.
Oh, fantastic. Right then, open it out to the floor now. Right, go on here. Do you need a mic or are you okay?
No, okay. This one's for Norman. You just said that you didn't have that much.
Sorry, yeah.
You said that you didn't have that much discussion with John Barry, but I would assume there were more discussions with editor Peter Hunt.
didn't hear what he said.
Okay, try again. So,
Oh,
so the discussions with Peter Hunt were they more elaborate? So how was he involved in
well, the
your work?
procedure always was that once the composer had been selected, he or she would come out to the editing room and would sit with the editor and probably the director as well, and they would just go through on the machine, on the editing machine, and they would say, what do you think? Music? Yes? No? What? You know, and slowly but surely, with the three brains agreeing, you would establish at a very early stage, well, once the film was first assembled anyway, you will have established where music was going to be used. And the composer could then go away and start thinking, yeah, well, that was an action scene, I think I'll do They wouldn't be able to write the music out early on because obviously the film was still being altered and edited. But that's the way it worked. But you never knew what the composer was going to come up with. And I always used to think when that moment came, when the end, all the tracks, weeks and weeks of tracks, all now with gentlemen like this, would have to be blended together. And for the first time, you'd hear what the composer had come up with. And there were times when you thought, oh, wow. And other times, but there we are. You know, that's filmmaking. Usually you approve.
Okay, thank you. Peter, time for another question. Peter at the back. On this chair.
Saw the electrocution scene and it had Eric Pullman's voice. When he gets menacing, it sounds like it's slowed down. Would there be something that you would do, that you would slow the voice down and change it as he's talking?
Well, that slowed down.
Yeah.
Where did you detect a slow voice?
It just felt like, on the contrary, it just sounds like when he does that, it sounds like it's kind of changing pitch, and also it sounds like it's slowing down.
Was this in the walk? This was in the walk.
This is in the electrocution scene.
In the
Execution.
Electrocution scene, the first one.
Ah.
That's number 9.
And the other thing was that when we heard Luciano Paluzzi this morning, her voice sounded, I'd not heard it before, and we'd always taken this idea that they always change the voice to Nicky van der Zyl, but Luciana's sounded exactly the same as it is in the movie, and your voice wasn't changed, was it?
No.
So, because it kind of, they kind of said that they changed all the women's voices and Nicky did them all, but that doesn't seem to be accurate from this. Do you know how many, what happened with the voices and things?
No, it's interesting that you've come up with this, you know, it's not something but if somebody spoke in a very slow way, obviously that would be recorded exactly as they said it. But for us to actually physically change the tone of a voice is very, very rare. I don't ever recall doing it. Do you? No.
Yes, when we had harmonisers that could change the pitch of the voice, there's several occasions where I've actually pitched the lead actor down a bit to make him more butch. At the request of the director.
But would it still be in sync?
Oh yeah, so that's a great thing. You know, before we had those harmonisers, we had to do it by slowing down the tape, which was never very good because you just lost the quality.
Yeah.
Again.